What could Matt Canada's firing change about the Steelers' offense? Pittsburgh. 51 days after vigorously vowing he was going to make changes from a podium inside a closet-sized news conference room in Houston, coach Mike Tomlin made a nearly unprecedented change in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers organization when he fired offensive coordinator Matt Canada. In the nearly 2 months since the 24-point loss to the Houston Texans, there were some changes, to be sure, but none with greater risk or potential reward. Less than 3 weeks ago, Canada moved from the booth to the sideline to call plays, a move that precipitated 2 of the Steelers' better offensive performances of the season. There were first drive points, a ground game surge and 2 nail-biter wins. But by the 3rd week of the experiment, it was clear moving from the booth to the field was a death rattle more than a breath of life. The Steelers' offense flatlined with 10 points against the Cleveland Browns, and Tomlin, who has never fired a coordinator during the season, knew it was time. "Our most recent performance was a component of it, but I just think you know when you're there, to be blunt and short about the answer," Tomlin said of the timing of his decision. "Our most recent performance was a component of it, but I just think you know when you're there, to be blunt and short about the answer." The numbers don't lie. Canada was the worst offensive coordinator of the Tomlin era. Of the 3 previous coordinators, Canada's offenses scored the fewest points per game, 17.9, and had the worst offensive efficiency, lowest QBR and fewest yards per passing attempt, per carry and per game. Canada posted the worst numbers in many of those metrics by a wide margin, too. Under Bruce Arians, the offense averaged 21.2 points. With Randy Fichtner, that number was 22.0, and under Todd Haley, 23.5. The total QBR under Fichtner, Haley and Arians was 61.2, while under Canada, it dropped to 44.8. And while the other 3 averaged 355 yards per game, Canada's offenses averaged 310. With Canada as coordinator, the Steelers were outgained in 31 of their 45 games, including the 2021 AFC wildcard loss to the Chiefs. And while the Steelers maintained a winning record in that stretch, they won 52% of regular season games with Canada as offensive coordinator. Fichtner won 60%, Haley 63.5% and Arians 68.8%. The biggest crux of it was results, Tomlin said of the decision to move on. The biggest crux of it was results. There are, of course, other factors contributing to those numbers beyond just the scheme and the play caller. The other coordinators had the benefit of working with likely future Hall of Fame quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, along with offensive skill players like running backs Le'Veon Bell and Rashard Mendenhall, wide receivers Antonio Brown, Hines Ward, Santonio Holmes and Juju Smith-Schuster and tight end Heath Miller. Canada, meanwhile, had a 39-year-old Roethlisberger in the final year of his career, 2 years removed from a season-ending elbow injury, 4 games of quarterback Mitch Trubisky and a rookie, Kenny Pickett, from a unanimously panned quarterback class. Pickett was thrown in the fire without regular season first-team reps when he took over for Trubisky in Week 4 of the 2022 season. There was also significant turnover and inconsistent development in skill position groups and the offensive line. Mainstays on the offensive line retired just before Roethlisberger. Smith-Schuster left. Chase Claypool was a flash in the pan. Diontae Johnson caught a persistent case of the drops. Najee Harris struggled through a training camp foot injury. Hopes were high for Canada and the offense entering the 2023 season, his first opportunity to work with an incumbent starting quarterback. Instead, after a flicker in the preseason, the offense regressed. Pickett's completion percentage, 87% in the preseason, dropped from 63% last season to 60% this season. And his QBR slid from 53.6 in 2022 to 35.7 this year. Growing pains were expected. Chronic agony was not. The improvements were not rapid enough or consistent enough for us to proceed, Tomlin said. The improvements were not rapid enough or consistent enough for us to proceed. Against the Browns, Pickett's struggles were evident, too, when he and wide receiver Diontae Johnson miscommunicated on several routes. leading to the ball bouncing to the turf either 10 yards beyond Johnson, or 10 yards in front of him. "There hadn't been enough continuity in our work," Tomlin said when asked about Pickett and Johnson. "There hadn't been enough continuity in our work." Canada's dismissal is as much a vote of confidence as it is a challenge to their second-year quarterback. Moving on from Canada now gives the Steelers 7 games to distill Pickett's problems before the fifth-year option decision comes due after the 2024 season. Is it the quarterback? Or is it the scheme? Roethlisberger struggled at times during his first seasons in the NFL, too. Sure, he won a Super Bowl in his second season, but his completion percentage that year was 61.7%, and he threw for 2,385 yards. He didn't have his first 3,000-yard passing season until his third year with the Steelers, and that year, he threw a career-high 23 interceptions to 18 touchdowns. But once then offensive coordinator Ken Whisenhunt left, Roethlisberger showed rapid improvement. In his first season with Arians in 2007, Roethlisberger earned his first Pro Bowl nod and threw 32 touchdowns, more than double the total from the year before. With Canada removed, the direction of Pickett's future should crystallize. He might not turn into a Hall of Fame quarterback, but to this point, evaluation of his performance and development has been intertwined with Canada and his offensive scheme. The Steelers won't have an entirely new offense Sunday against the Bengals. 12 weeks into the season and 6 weeks past their bye, it's too late to scrap everything and start from scratch. But quarterbacks coach Mike Sullivan, who will take over the bulk of play-calling duties, can pare down Pickett's menu of plays, eliminate the horizontal play calls and empower the running backs to carry the offense and open up the play-action game that has been shown to improve Pickett's numbers. Thanks for watching NY Sports News. Stay tuned for more updates.